drift into failure. This is a really useful concept to understand how incidents occur inside organizations. So let's start at the beginning. You put in place some sort of system to get your work done and keep your people safe. And you assume that if people follow that system, what will actually happen is they will be safe. So making people comply with that system is key. But of course, when people actually go to do the work, what they find is your system, your perfectly designed system, is not as practical as they think it should be. The procedure they're using could be written by someone who's never actually done the work. The piece of equipment you need to do the work may have not been got by procurement. There are lots of reasons why you can't apply this system perfectly. Now, when this happens, what happens? Do your workers run back up to your office and say, hey, this procedure doesn't work properly? No, they don't. What they do is they get a workaround. They get a workaround to solve their immediate problem. Now, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume they're not necessarily being reckless here. Let's assume they're doing some form of risk assessment, even if it's only informal in their head, to say, is this change to how I do the work going to have a negative outcome? Now, the problem with this risk assessment is it's a local risk assessment rather than a system level risk assessment. And of course, when you make that risk assessment and you decide it's okay to do it, and then you do it and nothing bad happens, what you do is you say, oh, this is probably a pretty good way of doing it. And when you repeat that over and over again, what actually happens is it becomes normalized. It becomes simply the way you do something. But then, of course, what happens is you hit another snag and you go, oh, actually, I can bend this rule a little bit further. I can make this process a little more efficient, and you can do another risk assessment and you can move again. And of course, what's happening is this is happening throughout your organization, because it's impossible to design a perfect practical system to get the work done and keep your people safe. And we call this drift into failure, because what happens is when something goes wrong and we go and investigate and we find that, hey, you are meant to be doing the work like this, but you're actually doing the work like this, or you are meant to be inspecting this equipment every 3 months and you're only inspecting it every 12 months, what we do is we go, why is there such a gap between the way you should have been doing something and the way you're actually doing something? Why did you jump from there to there? And of course, the answer is they didn't jump from there to there. They jumped in little small steps that to them seemed reasonable in and of themselves. It's only when you add them up that you drift to the point where you can have failure. Now, what's interesting is that organizations actually reward workers for drifting, because when you drift, what you're doing is you're actually adapting this cumbersome system. You're making it more efficient. Because you're making it more efficient, you become more productive. And because you become more productive, everyone in the organization is happy and they tend to reward you without asking how you became more productive. And the issue here is that the system that you've put in place to manage your hazards, because it has drifted, typically what happens is the controls you thought were effective are no longer effective anymore, because the system itself has changed. The system has what we would call become brittle. And when it becomes brittle like this, all you need is some form of initiating event. You need some human error. You need some bad luck. And suddenly the fact that the system is working differently now than you designed it originally will become evident. And when it becomes evident, you'll get a bad outcome, because the controls you want working are no longer functioning as you intended.